Good day, people of Azeroth. My name is Toren, and today I would like to talk about races and why Alliance isn't so bad as many people claim. I want to make this more relaxed, so I won't have any pre-written script for this, so let me know if you like it. I would also like to go through every single class and speak about PvE and PvP best race that there is available for it. So let's start with the Druid, my favorite class. Druids have only two races available, one for Alliance, Night Elves, and one for the Horde, which is Toren. So ratios are pretty comparable. There is no huge difference like this is a deal breaker, this is something which you have to take if you want to be competitive. Because both of the ratios or both of the races have very similar ratios. Both of them have one useless one, which is a Spirit for Night Elf and a Herbalism for the Toren. Then they have the same nature resistance, and then the only difference they have is that the Torrents have 5% stamina, which is huge and great, but on the other hand Night Elves have 1% dodge at top of everything else. So I would say like more avoidance for more kind of mitigation. It's not real mitigation, but it's HP, so always good. And then Taurens have the War Stomp, and the Night Elves have Shadow Melt. Shadow Melt does not only give them the ability to be invisible on one place and drink, but it also increases the effectiveness of stealth in cat form and other stealth for rogues. So that it's really up to up to preference of a set person, because if you want to drink in arena, then Night Elves is definitely better. But if you want to have a Warstorm Cyclone combo, then the Toren is better. The more nitty gritty we go inside of this, there is another difference, and that's the stats of the race. So Night Elf, they have two stats that are better, and that's agility and intellect. And Torrents, they have better strength, better stamina, and spirit than the Night Elf counterpart. So for that, I would say maybe the healers, the Resto Druid, is better for the Torrents, just because they have more spirit and more stamina, which is good for both PvE and PvP. And then for Boomkins, then I would say that the Night Elf have upper hand, just because, as I said, they can drink in stealth, and they have more intellect. So that's also, with intellect scales really greatly with Boomkin, because of the talent and just of the nature of the caster. And then for a feral DPS, it's kind of even, because Night Elves have more agility and Torrents have more strength, and both of them are quite valuable for the Druid. So that it's completely up to preference. And then finally the feral tank. That is kind of tricky, because avoidance is really great, more agility is also really great, but the stamina of the Toren and the 5% more stamina is just something which you wanna compare. Night Elves with the elusiveness and added agility get around 1.7% of dodge, and that's that they have from very beginning of tier 4 until very end of Sunwell Plateau. Torrents, on the other hand, have static stamina, but also endurance, which is 5% of your current stamina, so the effect is increasing in time. Next in line are Hunters. Hunters are way more clear option in what's best in terms of DPS. For PvE and PvP, the best one is Orc, for Beastmaster, that is. They have Blood Fury, which is a pseudo trinket, but it's a little bit better than a trinket, just because it can stack with attack power trinket, which you normally couldn't use two similar trinkets at the same time. Then they have 5% increased damage for the pet, which is also great, since the pet is actually now scaling, so it's more than just a cannon fodder. You can actually use it, it does deal great damage in PvE and also in PvP. And then finally stun resist, which is now only 10%, but it's still a really great addition for PvP. Then we have Troll. Trolls are kinda decent, and a lot of people say equal, but not so equal chance option for PvE DPS, because they have Berserking, which is increasing their attack speed, which you cannot really use as much as you wish, because your auto attacks can clip, so you cannot stack it with Rapid Fire or Bloodlust. You need to be mindful of that. And another downside of it, it's only 10 seconds and it's on 3-minute cooldown, not 2 minutes like your trinkets or your Blood Fury of the orcs. Next one is they have bow specialization. Now it just increases crits. So it's not that great, but you have to know that the best bows of the games are the bows for PvE. Also, like for example, the legendary bow is this bow. Then they have the best ratio ever, and that's Troll Regeneration. They can regen 24 HP per 5 seconds, and you can do nothing about it. Next one is Toren. They have Stomp, which is great for getting a gap between you and melee attacker, but it's not that great as it might sound. It's not a CC. It's a really small CC. You have to cast it. It's not that great. And then they have increased HP, which is kinda good because hunters do have a lot of HP. They have mail armor, so it is good, but just keep that in mind. It's not the best, but definitely a viable option. Then we have new edition, and it's Blood Elf. Blood Elf is the Horde race with the most agility, so if you want to be the best survival in your raid as a Horde, you should go for a Blood Elf. Then they also have Mana Tab, which doesn't really sound that great on the paper, but if you play the Mana Drain spec in arenas, that means like you're specially aiming to exhaust your enemy out of mana and resources and play the Atrocity War, then the Blood Elf is one of the best choices. Then they have the Silence, but Silence is not that great since it's only AoE around you, and as a Blood Elf or as a Hunter you don't wanna stay close to anybody else, especially casters and hunters don't usually stay close to each other. That's for the Horde, and now for the Alliance. And first one is Night Elf. Night Elf has most agility out of all races in World of Warcraft, even more than Blood Elves, and that makes them the best survival hunters in the whole game. That means they are boosting the whole raid, and they boosted more than Blood Elves, not only their own DPS. Then they have Shadow Melt, which is possible to make a combo with your Cat in PvP that both of you have stealth, but Cat is inferior in PvP, Wind Serpent is much better, so it is possible to do some shenanigans about it. People might not expect it, but it's just not as great. Then they have also Evasion, which increases their dodge chance by 1%. That's kinda good. It makes you, like for example, dodge some hamstring or something on you. It can help you. It's again not something like game changing, but it's really good. Next one are Drain Eyes, and Drain Eyes are something quite huge, and I would say a really good upset in terms of ally races. They have 1% physical hit aura for the whole party, and that's really great because if you have a Boomkin in raid, which gives 3% physical hit, and you have a Drainer in your party, then that's 4% hit, and you need 9 in total. So that means with Draenei and Boomkin, you just need to get 5% hit from your gear to be hit capped, and that's really great because it's aura, so it also helps with the pets. So if one Beastmaster gets Draenei and then one of the survival hunters get Night Elf, you get a really huge raid damage boost to you. It's not as great personal DPS as for example Orc, but it's greater for if you look at the raid DPS. Like for example, if you are a raid leader and a hunter, then you might reconsider being a Draenei because you're gonna help your raid a lot. Then they also have Shadow Resistance, which is only 10 resistance. It's not great. It can sometimes help you because all the fears are considered shadow damage, and also fights that the raid needs to get some resistance are usually the shadow resistance, like for example on Mother Shahraz in Black Temple. And then the last race of Alliance is Dwarves. Dwarves are kind of good and especially good for PvP, for PvE not so much. And that's because Stoneform is increasing their armor and clears you out of all bleeds and poisons, so that really counters ferals and rogues, and to some extent all the physical classes. So that's something great. You can get like some more endurance. It's really great. Then they have guns specialization, which is really great for PvP, since in PvP it doesn't really matter what weapon are you using, since guns, bows and crossbows, they're all the same. they just have same stats, just they have different appearance, nothing else. So you can definitely all the time choose the gun. And then they have frost resistance, which is again, it's just 10, it's not much, but it can help you against all the frost mages and to some extent the shamans with their frost shock to help you out there. So for PvP I would definitely choose the dwarf. Next in line is mage. First off, let's start with Blood Elves. Blood Elves get mana tap, which can help them if they have it stacked on trash 3 times and they use it during the boss fight. It's something like a really small mana potion, which is kind of good. And then they have one thing that is not written in their racials, but it's Blood Thistle. Blood Thistle is a usable item that is available only for Blood Elves, for nobody else, and it increases their spell damage. It's really good and you should be using it. It's one of the best PvE races for mage just because of the Blood Thistle. Then for PvP they have the Frost Nova, Cone of Cold, which is like on a close range. So that way they have a small synergy to, or like opportunity to use their AoE silence from the racial. Then another thing is that I didn't mention it before, but they also have like resistance to all magic schools, which is also not that great, but it has uses on most of the fights. It's less valuable than the other resistances, since like whatever magic they use against you, you have resistance against it. Next one is Undead. And Undead, they don't have anything that is completely mage related or that would help just directly mage. They have Will of the Forsaken, which is a pseudo semi PvP trinket, which is great. It also helps in PvE because some fights, like for example Nightbane, they have fear mechanic. It can help. It's really good, but I think it's overestimated how good it is. Then they have shadow resistance, so that also helps with fears, something which like complements the Will of the Forsaken. And then they have cannibalism, as every single race and every single not race but every single class. They can like heal a bit from it, even in arena, even in PvE. Nothing really special for mage. It's good race, but it's not as great as many people make it. Then there is Troll, and Troll is also like one of the best PvE races, just because of Berserking. They have the cooldown to increase their attack speed based on how much HP they are missing, and get it for 10 seconds and 3-minute cooldown. Now for the Alliance races, I'll start with the strongest one, the Gnomes. Gnomes get 5% more intellect, which helps with their crit and mana, of course, as every single intellect. But for Arcane Mages is especially good since they'll scale so well with intellect. And also Arcane Mages are, I think, the best choice for tier 5 and early tier 6 content. Then of course they have Escape Artist, which is now non-castable, it's instant, really great. Although their Blink and all the Frost defensive skills they have, they might have like not such a dire need for the racial, but it's still a good thing. And then they have Arcade Resistance, which really helps on some fights, like for example Caligos in Sunwell Plateau or Solarian in Tempest Keep. Something good. Then next one we have Human. They have increased Spirit, and that's kind of undervalued stat, especially for a mage, because they do get a lot from Spirit. For example, every single evocation does benefit from Spirit. But other than that, they don't have that many PvE ratios. Other than that, from PvP they have Perception, which is great for every single class since it helps to catch up the rogues and ferals and like all the druids. So that's good. And then just a little mention about increased rep. That means the ratio is called Diplomacy. It helps with all the reputation by 10%, and that's kind of good really for TBC because you're gonna get a lot of reputations that you need to get to Exalted. And then last one we have Draenei's. Draenei's, they have their own heal, which is a non-nature magic. So if someone's counterspell your heal or they counterspell any other spell, you can use either heal or you can use other spells. It's kinda good, and also it stacks with spell power. So for a mage, it's a decent heal. Not a great one, but a decent one. And then of course they have 1% spell hit for themselves and the whole party, which is also great. Ideally, you want to have a shaman elemental in your party or shaman resto in your party if you cannot get a elemental one, and they should already provide the spell hit aura. So it might not be the best choice if you are talking min maxing, but if you never want to worry about having it and or missing it for that say, you can be Draenei and help your party. Now let's go for Holy Priest. Holy Priests in PvE are also in PvP, they are definitely best on Alliance. In PvP, the best one is Dwarf by a large margin. First off, it has Stone Form, second off, it has Desperate Prayer and Chastise. All of those are considered holy spells, and they are terribly great for Dwarf and PvP at all. For PvE, we have a Human, which also has Desperate Prayer, and then as a racial it has 10% Spirit buff, which is amazing. That's one of the best spells, best stats for Holy Priest, for Circle of Healing Priest. So if you want to be Healing Priest in either PvE or PvP, Alliance is your best shot. For PvE DPS, that means a Shadow, you have a couple options. First one is Human. And since Shadow Priests are considered a mana battery and your spells are expensive, Humans are really great because Racial gives you 10% Spirit, and if you have Improved Spirit, which you can get yourself like without having Disco placed in your raid, but you can like get a buff before the raid, it also gives you 10% bonus damage on your Spirit. That means you can get insanely high bonus, even pre-Sunwall Plateau. That combination is really overpowered for Shadow Priest. Then there is a alternative of being an undead, which has Devouring Plague, but it's not that great dot because it costs 1200 mana and has 3-minute cooldown, so you can only use it like 2 times per boss fight. It also takes for only 15 seconds and only for about 300 damage per 3-second tick when you're already Sunwell Plateau geared, and that's not much. It's much more useful in PvP since it also heals you and it gives like shadow damage, but it's still not a really great dot. Then there is a troll who has ratio of 10% healing, 10% not spirit but haste. But it's also only for 10 seconds and for 3 minutes, and spell haste is also not that huge of a thing for Shadow Priest. And then finally there is Night Elf, who has Falling Stars, and the ratio is not shadow damage, so it doesn't proc the not Vampiring Embrace, but the Vampiring Touch. But it's a cool extra dot. It costs 0 mana and deals some nice damage. However, as I said, your group won't benefit much from it since it's not shadow damage. And it also changes your rotation a little bit, but it's like counted as a small extra pain. Then for Shadow PvP, there is couple options. First one is Trolls with their Shadow Guard, which is like a lightning shield. It can help you especially against rogues when you get like an opener. It's kind of good, but especially they have a hex, and that reduce healing by 20%, and that's something which is quite a thing in TBC since only warriors with Mortal Strike, rogues with Wound Poison, and hunters with Aim Shot can reduce healing. So if also a priest can do it, that's something great, and only trolls can do it. Then you have obvious choice that everybody's banging about, and that's undead because of Will of the Forsaken, which is again only good against warlocks and priests. But the priest is like, yeah, sure, he needs to get super close to you to use the fear, and of course you can like cannibalize and get devouring plague. But I still think the undead is highly overestimated and it's just not that good as many people make it. And then finally you have Night Elf, which is also a decent option because he also has a spell which is helping him evade, or not evade, but evase, and well, being hit, reducing the chance to be hit by 20% for 15 seconds. That's a really great defensive cooldown. And since priest can like do a lot without casting, like some of their dots, some of their spells, their shields, they're all instant, so you don't need to cast. That means you can actually utilize the dodge. And that's actually not a dodge, but a mischance, but still, it's really great, especially against rogues, and rogues are gonna be always on your ass. Then I would say there is not many other good stuff, since consume magic, symbol of hope, none of that is really good, none of that good in PvP, neither really PvE, neither for holy or disco or shadow priest. So I would finish this for a priest. And that's it for today's video. It's a first part, and I hope it helped debunking some close-minded views on Alliance, especially in PvE. This time, I also decided to record you some chill feral PvP montage to entertain your eyes. Hope you liked the video, and hear ya in the next one.